Back to Medellin talk. Our favorite Colombian American homeboy is back again to talk to us about the truth. The truth.
Gentrification in Medellin. A lot of people like to put all the blame on foreigners for the rising prices of rent and property here in Medellin. But I want to give you guys the real reasons and the real facts about why is life in Medellin becoming so costly, especially for locals. Let's talk about it. So let me start by saying that the rise in cost of living and housing affordability is a crisis worldwide. Just ask anybody living in cities like New York, Miami, Mexico City, or Barcelona, where rent prices have gone up 70% in the past 10 years. A lot of people want to place all the blame on foreigners coming to live here, but they don't look at the Colombian landlords and the Colombian real estate companies that are taking advantage of the fact that there's foreigners coming in with higher buying power and excessively raising the prices of their rent and property. They're pricing out locals and only wanting to work with and sell to foreigners because they can make more money. These landlords and real estate companies do not care if this isn't fair to the local Colombian people. All they care about is filling up their pockets with more money. Another very important...
I'm so happy this is speaking on this. He didn't just take this time to bash gringos like he always does. I'm glad that he finally is speaking some facts.
The factor is the housing deficit, which means that we literally don't have enough housing for all of the people who want to live in Medellin. And on top of that, there's already hundreds of thousands of people who live here who are living in very poor conditions, meaning they don't have running water, they don't have electricity, and they don't have a sewage system. So there's a huge demand to live here in Medellin, not only from people from all over the world, but by other Colombians from other parts of the country. And don't forget, Colombia has gone through an armed conflict for decades, in which cities like Medellin have received hundreds of thousands of refugees that were fleeing violence in the countryside and came to Medellin seeking a safe place to live.
So I did want to say that because I know some of you guys don't know this, but Medellin is like a refugee city now, where like a lot of people actually come here to get away from the war-torn shit happening in their smaller cities. I don't know if I was able to basically say this before, but in other cities in like Colombia, they're closer to the drug trade, and they're closer to a lot of these paramilitary groups. So they see a lot of really reckless violence that there's not enough police to really govern. So they're governed by whoever are the armed forces or whoever are the people running there that have money. They're the ones that run those cities. You guys are not used to seeing anything like this if you're coming from a first world country, because your government is strong. You have strong police. You have strong law enforcement. That stuff does not exist here in Colombia. I just want to make sure that you guys know that before we move forward with what I'm about to say next. So a lot of people end up coming to Medellin to get as far away from that as possible, right? This is like the middle of Medellin, a little bit closer to the coast. You got a lot of this that happens in Cali, but Cali is a bigger city, bigger government. So you mainly have cartel wars inside of Cali and, banditos and things like that. But like a small city like Sincelejo, you'll see a lot of this stuff. Cucatá probably sees some of this, right? Where there's armed paramilitary groups, there's friendly fire on the people, there's bombings, there's killings, there's beheadings. This is all stuff that does not make it to American news outlets, European news outlets, Canadian news outlets. So naturally, people are moving from these smaller places and coming to Medellin, and they're trying to basically do everything they can to make sure they can get permanent housing in Medellin, which now creates a housing shortage, right? And then, if you guys know economics, right, once supply starts to decrease and demand starts going high, inflation starts. Inflation starts. So I would argue 80% of the reason why inflation is happening here in Medellin has nothing to do with foreigners.
To put it in perspective, in 1990, Medellin's population was about 1,680,000. In 2020, the population rose to 2,600,000. This is about a 54% increase in population. If you've been to Medellin or know anything about it, you'll know it's located within a valley, the Valley of Aburrá. So on all sides, we're surrounded by steep mountains. So there's a limited amount of space that we can build in. If you've been to nearby municipalities like Sabaneta, Bello, or even Envigado, you'll notice that they're constantly building new apartment buildings, and there's really not more space to build anything new. All the space is basically used up the space that is left is extremely minimal. So we really don't have anywhere else to put more people. So all these factors combined are what create this crisis of housing, the deficit, and also these landlords and real estate companies that are taking advantage of foreigners with higher buying power and raising their prices to points where locals can't even afford it and are priced out of their own city. So that's the research I've done. That's what I know. That's what I think. Let me know what you guys think about this topic in the comments below.
So there's a guy named Mike Van Hoot. We did a video on him selling some trashy ass crib for $100,000, but I think if anybody has a good opinion on it,
so gentrification
actually does real estate in the country, right? He says, not to mention Colombian from other cities come in as well to put extra pressure on density. 98% of my sellers are Colombian, regardless of the price range, never in a rush to sell, and hold heavy sentimental value to these places. Paisas are the entrepreneurs of Colombia, and they will generally squeeze every peso they can get. Today, foreign interest has softened with the weak dollar and the overpricing of majority of Poblado, even with weak sales. I have deals where owners are holding on for 10 more years as it's going to double. At the end of the day, prices are only going from the city to Oriente. They aren't moving countries. It says total foreigners account for less than 4% of the people in Colombia. They don't even have an idea of what an influx of foreigners looks like. Yeah, man. Inflation is killing a little bit of everything. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. Killing a little bit of everything.